Let me preface this video by saying no, I have not watched The Acolyte, and no, I have no intention of doing so because Star Wars is dead, and it's been dead for some time, ever since 2012 to be precise, when George Lucas signed the death certificate and accepted $4 billion for the corpse. Not a bad deal, George, but I wonder how you feel about that now. George Lucas aside, the point is that Star Wars, the mega franchise that has sat atop the throne of nerd culture since 1977, is dead. Disney killed it, and it's time to let it go. But ugly, we can't let them win. We must fight to the bitter end, I hear you say. And boy, do I understand this sentiment, but let's take a step back and examine what we are fighting for. On its surface, the original Star Wars is not a complex story. It's about a farm boy, a space smuggler, and a princess joining forces to defeat the big bad empire. We go on adventures, we meet colorful characters, we have big, epic battles, and we have a training montage. It's all there. But underneath the surface, there is so much more. There are themes of friendship, love, faith, and hope. Well, hell, the fourth movie is titled A New Hope. Technically, it's the first movie, but go ahead and fight over that, you nerds. We have overwhelming moments of joy, infuriating moments of deceit, and unbelievable twists that place your jaw firmly on the floor. We have good dialogue, strong archetypes, and a rich, lived-in world. We have a story that is captivating because the elements can relate to everyone, which is exactly how it became so popular and successful in the first place. There is depth, there is substance. In other words, it has a soul. And even if people can't quite put their finger on it, they can sense the life, the joy, and the hard work that went into making Star Wars what it is, or rather, what it was. In 2015, Disney released their first Star Wars film, The Force Awakens, to thunderous applause and incredible praise. The film made $2 billion and currently has an audience score of 84% on Rotten Tomatoes. Admittedly, and much like many others, I remember walking out of the theater feeling good about what I had just watched, but for the life of me, I couldn't tell you why. I could tell you that it looked incredible, I could tell you that it felt big and epic, and I could tell you that the member berries were swollen, juicy, and delicious until they walked into a lightsaber and fell unceremoniously to their death. What I couldn't tell you is why the story might be good or why the characters are memorable, including the main character Rey. Normally, it would be easy to identify the hero's journey, but that's not possible with The Force Awakens because there is no hero's journey. Rey is automatically incredible at everything. Now, before I go any further, I guess I need to clarify something for all the smooth brains in the back. This has nothing to do with hating a woman. This has everything to do with hating a character that never experiences genuine struggle or has a real arc. The fact that this character just so happens to be a woman is Disney's decision and problem, not mine. Additionally, this is a worthwhile comparison to show how and why Star Wars no longer has a soul and should be left for dead. To the former point, I would direct you to these comments by The Force Awakens director and The Last Jedi producer J.J. Abrams when he said, quote, "The idea was to tell a tale of a young woman who was innately powerful, innately moral, innately good, but also struggling with her place in the world and forced to fend for herself in every way." He is admitting that Rey doesn't need to learn anything. She is already perfect and good at everything, and because of her being the bestest ever, the world just hates her for reasons. Oh boy, if only the world could recognize and accept her greatness, everything would just turn out fine. The problem with this lack of genuine weakness is that it is unrealistic to say the least. Every human being on the planet has faults, and the idea of perfection is just that, an idea. When we see a character on screen get their ass kicked, we think, oh yeah, I've been there. Or when they make a mistake that causes a big problem and draws the ire of their teammates, we think, boy, I know how that feels. When we see someone who is perfect, we are incapable of relating to them because we are imperfect creatures ourselves, and deep down we know this. Watching Rey become the most powerful Jedi in the universe means nothing because she didn't have to work to get there. She is more akin to a god than a human, and because of this, there is no connection. We are incapable of relating to someone like Rey Palpatine because there is no shared experience. It feels very forced and synthetic. It feels fake. It feels like it doesn't have a soul, and that is something that people can sense. Earlier in this video, I touched on the themes of the original trilogy, so it would only be fair if I do the same for the Disney material. So why don't we take a look at what Leslie Headland said about the content of The Acolyte prior to its release. Quote, "In the same way the original Star Wars film A New Hope is about a young man living in Modesto, California who doesn't want to take over his dad's hardware store, there's just no way that me being a queer woman is not going to be reflected in my work. I could try not to do it, but why would I? It just feels like a natural extension of what I do." She goes on. I think that because storytelling, at its core, is always going to come down to either the personal or emotional through line to your characters, your identity is important. And like I said, mine is just going to be in my work. Whether I'm explicitly dealing with it or not, it's always going to be there. Close quote. Do you notice anything? Do you notice how the narcissism is off the charts? Did she mention anything that relates to the greater populace of Earth? It's all me, my, I, mine, and oh yeah, queer. And this is 2 small paragraphs. Who talks like this? I'll tell you who. Self-centered, entitled, gassed-up brats who have lived in a bubble their entire lives and know nothing of the greater world. So it's no mystery they can't write anything that relates to anyone other than themselves and their allies. This seems to be a good spot to point out that there is a huge difference between a story reflecting the intelligence of its creator and the creator making the story all about themselves. That being said, I think it's fair to say that Leslie's intelligence doesn't extend beyond thinking of herself. But you know, it might not be fair to just leave it to one interview with the show creator, so yeah, you know what? Maybe we'll check out just 1 or 2 clips from the show. Let's take a look.
This isn't about good or bad. This is about power and who is allowed to use it.
Gee, that's funny. In a 2023 red carpet interview, the show's protagonist, Amandla Stenberg, said this.
Something that can feel really morally, spiritually, emotionally deep, because that's what Star Wars is. It's contending with these large questions about who we are as people and what in us is light, what in us is dark.
Boy, that sounds rather contradictory to the content of the show. Why don't we ask another actor from The Acolyte?
The best parts about Star Wars is there is no good or evil.
So, is this show about good versus evil or not? You know what? If they don't care if it makes sense, why the fuck should I? But I am going to be extremely generous and give them one more chance with the following clip.
I don't know what they will ask you, but whatever's in your heart, you must say the opposite.
What the fuck? Are you seriously telling her to lie? Why would you say these things to a child? What kind of morality is this? Oh yeah, that's right. Morality doesn't exist in this world because morality is left to those who believe in something greater than themselves. It is left to those who believe they can do better and strive to improve by holding themselves accountable using a moral code. The idea that morality is directly linked to an individual's soul is an idea that has been around for thousands of years. So considering Disney is blatantly tossing morality by the wayside, I think most people would agree that we are left with little more than a soulless turd. But hey, not everyone agrees, so it's up to you if you want to follow the teachings of Leslie Headland or Plato. Please, for the love of God, choose wisely. So all of this begs the question, why do people keep watching Disney Star Wars? Is it just because of nostalgia? Is it because of the pretty colors and flashy lights? Is it because you genuinely like the story, the characters, and the dialogue? Because if the majority of fan reviews are anything to go by, it's none of the above. The only people I can find who seem to enjoy The Acolyte can't tell you one good bit of characterization or dialogue and can't explain how the story makes sense. It's really a treat if you get a review like this one from the website Them that does nothing more than describe the plot, attack the fans, and excuse all of the intellectual theft. There is nothing in this review that comes close to giving an example of good dialogue or a theme that relates to the whole of humanity, but you will get plenty of queer, 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 because obviously that's what Star Wars fans want, you bigot. Oh, and of course, there's the usual tear down the institution's Marxist language, which I'm not even going to go into because it's fucking retarded. If you do happen to watch and enjoy The Acolyte, please tell me why in the comments below, because I am genuinely intrigued as to what makes you tick. It seems that the people who are hanging on either A, are financially incentivized to do so, or B, they don't know what else to do and are afraid of letting go. Regarding column A, I do understand there are people who make a living by reviewing even the worst of shows, and that you have to get in there and shill when the shilling is ripe for the picking. But regarding column B, why are you still giving Disney your time, money, and attention? What are you clinging to? Why are you afraid of letting go? We have the original trilogy, the prequels, decades of books, comics, games, toys, and memorabilia that actually all have the soul of Star Wars. These are things that you can enjoy with your friends and family for years and will be perfectly happy doing so. Do you actually think that in 20 years people will be asking to see your Rose Tico and Acolyte figures? Well, you better get digging because they're in the fucking dump. And do you actually think Disney will ever try to make things better? Why? If Kathleen Kennedy has suffered no consequence for her complete and utter destruction of Lucasfilm, and Lesbian Headlamp has suffered no consequence for helping Harvey Weinstein prey on young women, what makes you think they will change course? They have no incentive to do so. They have and will continue to make their millions based on the hard work of far more talented individuals. And in this case, that just happens to be a man named George Lucas, and you know that pisses them off, and it's really funny. The only reason they continue fucking with Star Wars is because we continue to give them our time and energy, positive, negative, or otherwise. It's like a girl in junior high who is really, really, really desperate for attention, and consequences be damned, she will do anything to get that attention, even if it means setting your cat on fire. So maybe I will finish with this, as I hope it may change your perspective on this culture war that we find ourselves in. This isn't giving up. This is growing up, even if it's just a little bit. Let these immature adolescents masquerading as adults have their little show, their movies, their Star Wars celebration bonanza, or whatever the fuck it's called, and we can move on to something better. They don't respect the story, and they certainly don't respect you. They merely see Star Wars as a vehicle to push their own identity, and they see you as a bigoted troglodyte who must either bow to their greatness or be thrown into the sea. Look, it was great while it lasted. For all things there is a season. As Bob Seger would say, turn the page. And as I just said, it's time to grow up, even just a bit. Part of growing up is accepting death as a natural part of life and learning to move on while smiling about the good times. So look back with fondness and look forward with hope, but for the love of God, let it die and move on.